Midnight visitor. The mountain cabin shuddered as thunder cracked overhead. Harrison Weber stared through the rain-streaked window, his ranger's instincts suddenly alert. Something moved at the edge of his property. Not an animal, but a figure, stumbling through the downpour toward his porch. Harrison reached for the shotgun mounted above his fireplace. 3 years as a forest ranger in this remote corner of Colorado had taught him caution. The nearest neighbor was 12 miles away, and uninvited guests rarely brought good news. The figure collapsed against his door. A soft, rhythmic pounding followed, not threatening but desperate. "Who's there?" Harrison called out, weapon ready. No answer, just another feeble knock. Against his better judgment, Harrison opened the door, shotgun at his side. What he saw made him stumble backward. A woman, at least something shaped like a woman, fell forward onto his threshold. Her skin was a deep, violet hue that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light. Dark, iridescent liquid dripped from a wound on her shoulder. Her eyes, when they fluttered open, revealed irises of brilliant amber with no whites, just pools of golden light. "Hide me," she whispered, her voice strangely melodic but strained. "They're coming." Harrison's grip tightened on his shotgun. "What are you?" The violet-skinned woman pushed herself to her knees. "My name is Nix. I'm not from your world." She glanced nervously at the sky. "Please, if they find me, they'll kill me. And probably you too." Before Harrison could respond, a high-pitched whine cut through the storm. Nix tensed, her amber eyes widening with unmistakable fear. "Collectors!" she gasped. "Please, I'm begging you, help me." Harrison had always considered himself a rational man. Aliens weren't real. Yet here was this violet-skinned woman, bleeding, something that definitely wasn't blood, terrified of whatever made that sound above his cabin. "Fine," he muttered, pulling her inside and shutting the door. "Behind the bookcase, there's a storage space." As he helped her to her feet, Harrison noticed the strange fabric of her clothing, something like liquid metal that seemed to flow with her movements. Her skin was warm, almost feverish to the touch. The whining grew louder. Through the window, Harrison caught sight of a pulsing light moving through the clouds. "They're scanning," Nix whispered, as he guided her to the hidden space. "They can detect life forms." Harrison slid the bookcase closed once she was hidden, then grabbed his shotgun again. "What exactly are these collectors?" "Enforcers," came her muffled reply. "I fled because I learned too much. About the experiments. About what they're planning for worlds like yours." The cabin's lights flickered, then died. The whining sound intensified directly overhead now. Harrison moved to the window, watching as a metallic object, sleek and predatory, descended through the storm clouds. Not a helicopter, not a plane. Something else entirely. "If they come in," he whispered toward the bookcase, "what can hurt them?" "Nothing you have," Nix replied softly, "but they don't know your world. They don't expect resistance." Harrison nodded, processing this. He was probably insane for believing her, but something in his gut told him this violet woman was telling the truth. The craft hovered, bathing the clearing in pulsing blue light. Harrison ducked away from the window, heart pounding. "I'm going to help you," he decided aloud. "But when this is over, I want answers. All of them." From behind the bookcase, he heard what might have been a laugh, soft and musical. "If we survive," Nix promised, "I'll tell you everything." Hunter's Moon. The collector's ship hovered outside Harrison's cabin for 17 excruciating minutes before the blue scanning beam finally powered down. As the craft rose back into the storm clouds, Harrison released the breath he'd been holding. "They'll be back," Nick said as he helped her from behind the bookcase. "They never abandon a hunt." Under proper light, Harrison could now fully see his unexpected guest. Nick stood slightly taller than him, her violet skin marked with subtle patterns that seemed to shift like oil on water. The wound on her shoulder had stopped bleeding, the iridescent liquid now crystallizing around the edges. "You need medical attention," Harrison said, gesturing to her injury. Nix shook her head. "My physiology is different. It's already healing." She glanced toward the window. We have maybe 6 hours before they realize their scanners missed something. They'll return with ground troops. Harrison ran a hand through his dark hair. So we need to move. But first, who exactly are you running from? Nick sank onto his worn couch. I'm what my people call an astral navigator. I was part of an advanced research team, studying Earth for possible integration. Integration? Harrison's voice hardened. You mean invasion? Initially, yes. Her amber eyes met his. My people, the Selenari, believe themselves superior to all carbon-based life. They've conquered 17 systems using the same method. Send navigators to study weaknesses, then the collectors prepare the world for harvest. Harrison's grip tightened on his shotgun. And you were part of this? Until I spent time here. Nix's voice softened. 3 Earth months observing humans. I saw kindness, art, love. Things the Selenari stripped from our culture centuries ago. She looked down at her hands. When I reported that Earth should be classified as protected, they ordered my termination. Harrison studied her face, searching for deception. Finding none, he nodded once. There's an old ranger station, about 8 miles up the mountain, remote. Built partly into the rock face, might confuse their scanners. Nick smiled, revealing teeth that seemed to gleam like mother of pearl. Thank you, Harrison. Don't thank me yet. He moved to a closet, pulling out a weatherproof jacket and boots. We've got a hard climb ahead. Can you move with that injury? She rose fluidly. My people evolved on a world with twice Earth's gravity. I'll manage. They slipped out the back door into the rain-soaked forest. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sky studded with stars and a waxing moon that bathed the wilderness in silver light. Harrison led the way, his ranger training making him sure-footed even in the dark. Nix moved beside him with an eerie grace, her violet skin almost luminescent under the moonlight. The collectors, Harrison asked as they climbed. What kind of weapons do they have? Sonic disruptors, neural stun fields, nothing that leaves marks. They prefer to take prisoners alive for questioning. Harrison nodded grimly. Then we'll need to be smarter, not stronger. Halfway up the mountain, Nix suddenly froze. Her head tilted, like a predator sensing prey. Down, she hissed, pulling Harrison behind a fallen tree. Seconds later, a small metallic sphere whirred past, emitting the same blue light they'd seen at the cabin. A scout drone. It didn't see us, Nix whispered. But where there's one, there'll be more, Harrison finished. We need to move faster. As they resumed their climb, Harrison noticed Nix studying him with curious intensity. What? He asked between breaths. Most humans would have handed me over, or run. Why risk your life for someone not even of your world? Harrison considered this as they scrambled up a rocky slope. 3 years ago, I was caught in a wildfire. Should have died. Instead, a stranger pulled me out. Never knew their name. Never got to thank them. He glanced at her. Maybe the universe works like that sometimes. Paying debts forward. Nix's amber eyes widened slightly. The Selenari would call such thinking primitive superstition. Harrison laughed softly. And what would you call it? For the first time, a genuine smile crossed her face. Beautiful. Stolen moments, the abandoned ranger station appeared as dawn broke, its weathered structure half embedded in the mountainside. Harrison worked quickly to secure the perimeter, while Nix examined the building's layout. The rock formations should scatter their scanning signals, she explained, running her slender fingers along the stone walls. And the metal roof will help mask our heat signatures. Harrison barred the door with a fallen beam. How long before they track us here? If we're fortunate, a day, perhaps 2. Nix settled onto a dusty chair, finally allowing exhaustion to show on her features. You should rest, I'll keep watch. Harrison shook his head. Not until you tell me more. These collectors, how many will come? A standard hunting party is 5 warriors, Nix replied. Engineered for combat with enhanced senses and reflexes. They can track a target across entire continents. And they want you because you turned against your mission? Nix's amber eyes clouded. Not just that. I accessed restricted files before my escape. The Selenari aren't just harvesting planets for resources, they're collecting genetic material. Earth is special because of human adaptability. She looked down. My people see themselves as perfect, but our genetics have grown stagnant. Yours are remarkably resilient. Harrison felt a chill. You're saying they want to use us for breeding? Worse, they extract what makes humans adaptable, then discard the rest. Her voice dropped. Billions would die. Silence fell between them as Harrison processed this. Outside, birdsong began to fill the morning air. Ordinary sounds in a world suddenly extraordinary. You risked everything to warn us, Harrison said finally. Why? Nick stood, moving to a dust-covered window. Sunlight caught her violet skin, revealing those shifting patterns beneath, like constellations moving across an alien sky. During my observation period, I was stationed in a city called Denver. She began softly. I watched a human female rescue 4 juvenile canines from a drainage pipe during a flash flood. She had no obligation to them, yet risked her life. Later, I observed an elderly male sharing his food with homeless strangers, despite having little himself. She turned to face Harrison. The Selenari taught us that compassion is weakness, that sentiment leads to extinction. But everything I witnessed here contradicted that. Humans are stronger because of your connections, not despite them. Harrison moved closer, drawn by the intensity in her voice. You said you were engineered. For what purpose? Navigation, stellar cartography, finding worlds suitable for conquest. A bitter smile crossed her lips. We're created for specific roles. Relationships between castes are forbidden. Emotional attachments are corrected. Sounds lonely, Harrison murmured. I never knew differently. Nix's amber eyes met his. Until Earth. Something electric passed between them in that moment. Our recognition of 2 beings far from home, finding unexpected connection. Harrison cleared his throat. You should rest. I'll take first watch. But Nix didn't move away. Instead, her hand rose hesitantly, fingers hovering near his face. May I? When Harrison nodded, her touch was feather-light against his cheek. Her skin radiated gentle warmth. Your neural patterns, she whispered. They're beautiful. So complex, so alive. Harrison caught her hand in his. Is this how your people communicate? No. Her voice trembled slightly. This is something new. Later, as afternoon sun cast long shadows across the ranger station, they sat side by side sharing Harrison's emergency rations. Nix explained her world, a planet of crystalline cities and rigid hierarchy, where beauty existed without joy and knowledge without wisdom. In return, Harrison told her of Earth's contradictions, its cruelty and kindness, its destruction and creation. If we survive this, Nix said suddenly, what will you do? Harrison considered the question. 3 days ago, his biggest concern had been tracking, reports of illegal hunters in his forest. Now he was harboring an alien fugitive while preparing to fight off interstellar enforcers. One day at a time, he answered finally. It's how humans handle the impossible. Nix's expression softened. A wise philosophy. As evening approached, Harrison found himself watching Nix as she slept, this extraordinary being who had crashed into his ordinary life. In repose, she looked almost peaceful, the constant vigilance momentarily lifted from her features. Whatever came next, he realized, his world would never be the same. Part 4. Celestial Confrontation. They came at midnight, silent and methodical. Harrison might have slept through the attack if Nix hadn't jolted awake, her amber eyes wide with alarm. They're here, she whispered, pulling him from his makeshift bed. 5 of them, surrounding the structure. Harrison grabbed his shotgun, though Nix had warned it would be minimally effective. How did they find us so quickly? Residual energy trail from my wound. She moved to the window, keeping low. They're deploying suppression fields. Technology that disrupts neural functions, makes capture easier. Outside, moonlight revealed 5 tall figures in form-fitting silver armor, their movements unnaturally precise as they positioned small devices. Around the ranger station, Harrison assessed their options grimly. Back exit, sealed off. They're thorough. Nix turned to him, her expression resolute. You should surrender. Tell them I forced you to help me. The Selenari have no interest in single humans, only population-scale genetics. Harrison gave her a hard look. That's not happening. A faint smile touched her lips. I suspected you'd say that. He moved to his pack, removing items he'd gathered during their journey up the mountain. You said their technology is sensitive to certain disruptions, right? Nix watched as he laid out pine resin, iron filings from his fire starter, and several packets of chemicals from the ranger station's abandoned supply closet. Harrison, what are you planning? You said the collectors rely on precise scanning and neurological disruption. He worked quickly, mixing components. But Earth is messy, unpredictable. Let's use that. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Interference, patterns. Exactly. He handed her several of the makeshift devices. Place these near the windows. The iron particles should disrupt their magnetic sensors, and when heated, the resin produces a sap that might confuse organic scans. While they worked, a low humming began outside, the suppression field activating. Harrison felt it immediately, a strange pressure behind his eyes, thoughts becoming sluggish. Nix staggered, more severely affected. Neural disruptors, she gasped. Calibrated for Selenari physiology. Harrison caught her before she fell. How long before it incapacitates you? Minutes, she whispered. Maybe less. He ignited the first mixture, which began emitting a thick aromatic smoke. Almost immediately, the humming outside faltered. It's working, Nix breathed, straightening slightly. Harrison moved to the door, shotgun ready. Can you still sense them? She nodded. 2 approaching the front entrance, 3 maintaining position. When I open the door, ignite the remaining. Packets. Fear flashed across her features. Harrison, trust me. He met her gaze steadily. Please. After a moment, she nodded. Harrison threw open the door and fired the shotgun into the air. The noise was deafening in the mountain stillness, but more importantly, it triggered an avalanche of loose rocks from above the station, exactly as he'd hoped. The 2 approaching collectors looked up as boulders crashed down. One dodged with inhuman speed, but the other disappeared beneath the rockfall. Nix ignited the remaining chemical packets, filling the air with disruptive smoke. The effect on the collectors was immediate. Their coordinated movements became jerky, uncertain. Their neural link is disrupted, Nix whispered excitedly. They can't communicate. Harrison seized the moment. Run for the trees. I'll be right. Behind you. Nix hesitated. No, I won't leave. We're not separating, he promised. Just trust me. They burst from the station into the chaos outside. The collectors, momentarily disoriented, failed to react quickly enough. Harrison and Nix plunged into the forest, where Harrison had prepared one final surprise. When the first collector pursued them into the trees, it triggered the tripwire Harrison had set, releasing a torrent of water from the mountain stream he'd diverted earlier. The freezing water crashed over the alien, shorting out its armor systems in a shower of sparks. The remaining collectors regrouped, advancing more cautiously now. Harrison pulled Nix behind a massive fallen tree. Their technology is vulnerable to our environment, he whispered. They weren't prepared for this. Nix's amber eyes gleamed with newfound hope. You're incredible. A pulse of energy struck nearby, disintegrating bark into ash. They've switched to lethal protocols, Nix warned. We won't get another chance. Harrison nodded toward the ridge above. One more surprise waiting. As the collectors converged on their position, Harrison fired his last shotgun shell into the hillside, igniting the natural gas pocket he'd discovered earlier and loosened with carefully placed rocks. The explosion wasn't large, but it triggered exactly what Harrison had counted on, a landslide that swept down, burying the remaining collectors under tons of earth and stone. When silence finally fell, Harrison helped Nyx to her feet. Her violet skin was smudged with dirt, but her eyes shone with something between amazement and admiration. "You defeated them with rocks and water," she said incredulously. Harrison shrugged. "Sometimes the simplest solutions work best." Nyx suddenly stiffened. One survived. It's calling for extraction. In the distance, a familiar whine began to grow. Beyond the stars, the surviving collector's distress beacon pulsed through the night, a rhythmic crimson glow against the dark mountainside. Above, stars winked through breaks in the clouds, beautiful and suddenly threatening. "More will come," Nyx said quietly as they watched from their new hiding place, a cave system Harrison knew from previous expeditions. Not just collectors, warships, invasion forces. Harrison stared at the distant beacon. "How much time do we have?" "The nearest Selenari outpost is in your system's outer belt. Perhaps 3 Earth days before reinforcements arrive." She turned. To him, her expression grave. "Harrison, I'm so sorry I've brought this to your world." "You tried to warn us," he corrected. "That counts for something." Moonlight filtered through the cave entrance, illuminating Nyx's features. The subtle constellation patterns beneath her violet skin seemed to pulse with inner light, mapping stars Harrison had never seen. "There's something I haven't told you," she said, her voice barely audible. "Something I took when I escaped." From a hidden compartment in her strange metallic clothing, Nyx withdrew a crystal the size of a playing card, translucent and faintly glowing. "A command key," she explained. "It can override Selenari systems, including their ships." Harrison's eyes widened. "You could use it to stop them?" "If I can reach their outpost before reinforcements launch, yes." Her amber eyes met his. "I can transmit false data, convince the Selenari High Command that Earth harbors pathogens deadly to our kind. They would quarantine your solar system, perhaps for centuries." Hope flickered, then faded. "But the collector ship is destroyed. How would you even reach their outpost?" Nyx's expression shifted to something more vulnerable than he'd seen before. "There's another ship, hidden in the ravine where I first landed, about 30 miles from your cabin. I damaged it during my escape to prevent tracking, but it's repairable." "You always had an escape plan," Harrison said, understanding dawning. "Yes," she admitted. "But I never intended to use it. I expected to die warning your people." The implication hung between them. She could leave now, save Earth, but never return. Harrison turned away, processing this. 3 days ago, his life had been simple, predictable. Now he was faced with the immensity of universe and the unfathomable courage of this alien woman who'd risked everything for a world not her own. "How long would the repairs take?" he asked finally. "With proper materials, less than 1 Earth day." Harrison nodded decisively. "Then we leave at first light." The journey back through the forest was tense but uneventful. By midday, they reached the ravine where Nyx's ship lay concealed beneath a camouflage field. When she deactivated it, Harrison caught his breath. Sleek and silver blue, the craft resembled a teardrop, large enough for perhaps 3 passengers. Working together, they repaired the damaged propulsion system, using parts Harrison salvaged from his Ranger equipment. As sunset approached, Nyx made final calibrations while Harrison stood at the ravine's edge, watching the sky for signs of pursuit. "It's ready," she called softly. Harrison turned to find her standing by the open hatch, amber eyes reflecting the setting sun. Something unspoken passed between them. A question, an invitation. "You could come with me," she finally said, breaking the silence. "After I transmit the quarantine code." Harrison stared at her, momentarily speechless. "Leave Earth?" "The Selenari would hunt me eternally for my betrayal. I can never return to known space." Her voice softened. "I'll explore the uncharted systems beyond the Crescent Nebula. No maps, no paths, just freedom. The enormity of her offer washed over him. Leave behind everything he'd ever known. His home. His world. For what? Adventures among distant stars with a woman, an alien, he'd known for mere days. Yet something, deep within him, responded to the call. What waited for him here? Lonely years in his cabin, filing ranger reports, watching humanity continue its slow self-destruction? I have nothing to offer you, he said honestly. I don't understand your technology, your customs. I'd be useless out there. Nyx moved closer, those constellation patterns beneath her skin pulsing faster. You offered me shelter when I was hunted, kindness when I expected none, ingenuity when we faced impossible odds. Her hand reached for his, fingers intertwining. You showed me what it means to be truly alive, Harrison. That's worth more than any skill. The warmth of her touch traveled up his arm, settling somewhere behind his ribs. This wasn't logical, wasn't rational, yet nothing in his life had ever felt more right. How would it work? He asked, voice rough with emotion. Physiologically, we're different species. A smile played across her lips. The universe is vast, Harrison. We'll figure it out together. Night fell as they made final preparations. The ship hummed with restored power, its systems glowing with soft blue light. Harrison took one last look at Earth's familiar moon rising above the trees. You're certain? Nyx asked, standing beside him. Harrison turned to her. This extraordinary being who had crashed into his life and changed everything. No, he admitted with a smile, but I'm ready anyway. As the ship rose silently into the night sky, Harrison felt neither regret nor fear, only the exhilarating certainty that whatever lay beyond the stars, they would face it together. Two refugees from worlds that could never understand them, finding in each other something neither knew they sought: belonging. The Earth receded below, growing smaller until it was just another blue point of light among countless stars. And ahead, uncharted space beckoned with infinite possibilities.